Good morning, everyone. Colleagues, thank you for joining today's session. My name is IK. I'm just going to put up the slide, and I hope we're all ready for this very interesting session that we're going to have today. Thank you so much for taking our time to join this session. Today, we are going to be talking about the misconception. I know there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding the D3, how to apply the policy, and also how to use the dashboard in trying to support the schools, support the learners, and not just the learners, also support educators. But first and foremost, how do you interpret the D3 circular, right? How do you also calculate? We're going to be speaking about a lot of things here, and I hope that this session is going to clarify a lot of things. I know how this was born out when we had a webinar of how to support underperforming schools, and we noticed that a lot of misconception. We also noticed that there was an updated circular that a lot of people are not even aware. So today we have the expert in the room from DBE that is going to put to bed, the speculation. So we're going to hear from the author of the circular, explaining this. And I hope that at the end of today, we would have a bit of understanding, on how to interpret this circular and how to use the dashboard, the data that's captured on SSMs to better support our schools. Also, colleagues, we are going to be calling, first of all, there is a district in Gauteng that it has been, they have really been using this circular. They have really been using the dashboard. And it's not a surprise that they have been #1 for a while. And, we are going to be calling on the district director to speak on how they have been using the Triple D dashboard, they have been doing. I think I can summarize this as best practice and not wasting a lot of time because, we are short of time. There's a lot of speakers. I'm going to call on the district director for Johannesburg West. He's going to be speaking on his best practice, how his district has been utilizing the data that is captured at the school level on SSMs and also submitted on the Triple D dashboard. How have they been doing it? And I hope colleagues, by the end of today, would have learned one or two from the #1 district in Gauteng, right? And we are hearing from the national. Thank you so much for correcting me. So we have the district director here that is going to speak to that. Director, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Program Director, and special greetings to all the officials on call. And on behalf of Johannesburg West, we are excited to be part of the session this morning. And as per your address, our scope really was to share with the meeting how, as a district, we have made a data-led thinking part of our approach. And I have shared a slide with you. I hope you can flight it. We, as a district, have taken SSMs to another level, and we've got 4 guiding pillars that we are using to ensure data upload on SSMs and Triple D usage. So firstly, IK, I'm going to address you on the process that we follow, or our process map on the gathering of data, which will in the main talk to how we collect learner and educator data on daily basis. Secondly, I'll address the meeting on how that data gets analyzed and what are the processes that are involved in interpreting the data. And lastly, what then do we do in terms of reporting on that data? So as it relates to the gathering of data, Program Director, what we have done as a district to ensure credible data gathering processes that we have quarterly training sessions for our frontline officials, who are our SSM school administrators and champions. These are the colleagues or the people who understand the value of data management in terms of the upload, submission deadlines, and data credibility. Our trainings on data management are located within our subdirectorate unit called ISSP, which stands for Information Systems and Strategic Planning. And this program is led by our District Information Systems Management Unit. These and quarterly training sessions also targets the district officials, school principals, and their SMTs. And this is our way as a district to ensure continued capacity building on SSMs. As a district and as a result of the process map I've just spoken to, we have been able to infuse the culture of data capturing in all our schools, which now forms part of our principals' daily plans. And this is closely monitored by our IDSOs and different unit heads within the district. It's also monitored by our principals themselves in terms of data upload at school level and our deputy principals. So the DISM unit in ISSP subdirectorate tracks weekly these submissions on Triple T dashboard to ensure that all our schools have submitted. This is done to ensure that when we get to the reporting level, we are sure that all our schools have made the necessary upload. Therefore, as a result of that, we then have an immediate support approach through our IT technicians and DISM officials at all schools, whose role is to ensure optimal SSM's functionality, usage, reporting, and upload. In terms of data analysis, we then, as a result of data that has been uploaded, analyze the submitted data from schools for the previous week, because I've indicated to you that schools capture data daily and we verify it weekly. So we then analyze that submitted data from schools for the previous week and focus on the following aspects: learner attendance, educator attendance, and the performance in all our subjects. Then this data then assists us so that in poor performing subjects, we are therefore able to make a determination whether attendance of learners or that of educators affected or is the negative attribute to the poor performance. And immediately through this exercise, then triggers the support to the schools by different line functions in our district. So the weekly submitted data also helps us to categorize our learners into high flyers, moderate learners, and learners at risk, so that our intervention are specifically targeting learners in terms of their level of comprehension. So this approach really helps us as a district to support our teachers through our facilitators and departmental heads at school level to develop specific interventions for each category of learners as identified in terms of the subject performance. The third approach, it's around the interpretation of data. As a district IK, we have a periodic or standing executive district management team meetings, including the district management team meetings, where the ISSP subdirectorate, led by the DISM unit in the district, makes presentations on submitted weekly data and highlight the findings regarding schools with issues of concern. And those issues may, amongst others, include poor attendance of learners or educators, non-submission or upload or capturing of weekly data by schools, poor performing subjects, tracking of performance of progress learners, and also the usage and the accessing of Triple D by both district officials and schools. So you can see that we are able to triangulate the upload process, the data analysis process, and how we get to interpret that particular data. And therefore, these reports, okay, helps the district management team and the school management teams, including our school support teams, to provide oversight on regular basis in identified red flag schools, and then develop an intervention plan that focuses on improving the aspects impacting on performance in respect of the 5 categories that I've already spoken about. And the last issue, or the last pillar that we employ as a district to ensure SSM's uptake and triple D functionality in terms of data interpretation. The data that has been interpreted then gets to be reported. And this is the process that we follow in terms of the reporting on data. Our district have formed a feedback sessions process, which we call a war room. This is where each and every unit presents their plans of intervention based on the report from the data interpretation exercise. So that already tells you that we are taking decisions based on the data that we have received and how it has been analyzed and interpreted. It is in these meetings where every manager is then expected to plan and intervene in terms of their respective line functions, because you know that in terms of the 17 modules, everybody has got a role to play in terms of the SSM's upload and triple D dashboard interpretation and intervention. So all the line functions in our different directorates have vested interest in the data-driven districts model and are able to report on all schools using the data from the dashboard. So this is our strategy as a district. And as a result of this approach, as a result of this approach and this strategy, we are humbled as a district to report that to date, we have realized an increase in the number of registered triple D users, and we are currently sitting at 81% repeat users. So the uptake is there and growing, which confirms that our decisions are indeed data-driven. So in the main, this is really how, as Johannesburg West District, are making a data-led thinking part of our approach in terms of responsiveness to areas of support at our schools based on the data that has been loaded on SSMs. So in the main, that's what we do. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Okay.
Thank you so much, District Director. Very important and well articulated step-by-step approach. Thank you so much. And I hope that we have seen that for Johannesburg to be number one, it's not something that happened overnight. It's a clear step-by-step and clear plan that involves everyone in the district office. And I know that this flows down to the school to see how data has been used. You know, he talked about data capturing, submission, looking at the data, a lot of things. And he has actually put the points there. Colleagues, please note that we are also going to be sharing this information to everyone that registered or pre-registered for the session. Also, please note that when you join the meeting, you are not on mute. Please assist us to mute your mic. I think we are going to be moving straight to the crust of the session today. And thank you so much, Director, for that well explained piece. I'm going to go to the next slide now. We are going to be introducing Miss Edith. Miss Edith is from DBE, and it's exactly the policy that we want to now speak about. And I think she's going to, explain the amended, the calculation, a lot of things. I shouldn't take the word from her. Miss Edith, if you're ready, the mic is yours. Colleagues, please know that we would also be asking questions from 9:45. So Miss Edith, I hope you can try and just make great use of the time. By 9:45, we'll be having the questions just with respect to what you have spoken about. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, IK, and good morning to all the participants. It's indeed an honor to be presenting the amendments to Circular D3, trying to explain it to all the colleagues in the provinces. You may move, IK. Okay, very shortly, I'm just going to say this is a presentation outline. We'll be talking about the legislative framework. We will be talking about what guides us or what guides us every day and what guided us in the compilation of Circular D3. Then another important issue that we will be discussing is the criteria, trying to understand Circular D3 and the criteria for the identification of underperforming schools. And as IK said, I will do a little bit of calculations just to make it easier to understand, and a summary of why the amendments were necessary, what the key areas of change was. We will look at common misperceptions and misunderstandings, and what education officials should be doing from now on, and we will look at the key milestones and timeframes. Thank you, IK. Right, so just a little bit of background and purpose. Legislation, it's in line with the South African Schools Act number 84 of 1996 as amended, specifically section 16A and 58B of this act. Circular D1, that is where it started, colleagues. It started in 2014 when we sent out Circular D1, and then Circular D1 was replaced by Circular D2 of 2017, which was then later replaced by Circular D3 of 2023. What was the reason for all these amendments? It's that provinces, in the implementation of Circular D1 and D2, they gained valuable insights, best practices that can now be used in to further improve learner performance. And that is also to set out the criteria that must be followed when we identify, manage, and support underperforming schools. Next slide. IK, next slide, please. It's just that here is the legislation. I mentioned it. This circular applies to all public schools. And it is the legislative framework that we took into consideration is the Constitution of South Africa, the Employment of Educators Act, the National Policy on Whole School Evaluation, the National Education Policy Act, and the South African Schools Act, Section 16A and 15B as 58B as alluded earlier. Thank you. Right, now what guides us? It's sections, what specifically in section 16A and 58B of the SASA? It's the role of the principal, we'll find that in 16A. The identification of underperforming schools in section 58B. The steps to be taken after the schools have been identified, and the development of the academic performance improvement plan of the school. Then reporting by the MEC to the minister, which will take place on or before 31st of March. How the district is supposed to support the underperforming schools, the implementation of the intervention strategies, and the reporting on progress on the 30th June of every year. The criteria set out in Circular D3 is for primary schools, for secondary schools, and for combined schools. We can move IK. Now, just to try to explain why the amendments were necessary. Colleagues, the sector is moving. If we just look at the performance of the sector from 2020 to 2024, we would see that there has been an improvement, both quantitatively and qualitatively. The table below shows the improvement over the past 5 years. In the interest of time, I'll just quickly do 2 years. In 2020, the national pass percentage was at 76.2, and the percentage of bachelor passes was 21.4. Let's jump to 2024. In 2024, the national pass percentage had increased to 87.3, and the percentage of bachelor passes nationally was 47.8%. Thank you, IK. Now let's just look at the performance of the provincial education departments in respect to this. Again, I'll just take 2 rows. Let me take the Western Cape. In 2023, they had 81.5% pass rate, and that had increased to 86.6 in 2024 NSC. Mpumalanga, 77.0% in 2023 and 84.9% in 2024. So as I'm saying, colleagues, we cannot remain stagnant with Circular D1 where the sector is moving. It's increasing, it's performing much better. Next slide, IK. Now, let us look at the criteria very quickly. A secondary school, a Circular D3 of 2023, a secondary school should be deemed to be underperforming if its pass percentage in the NSC examination falls below 70%, and if the school has the minimum benchmark of 70% but has produced less than 30% bachelor passes. Combined school, in the case of combined school, the school should be deemed to have underperformed if any one of both of the grades, grade 6 and grade 12, because these combined schools have grade 6 and they have grade 12. So the letter of notice should clarify in which phase the school has underperformed. If it underperforms in one phase, it has underperformed. If it underperformed in both phases, it has underperformed. Then the chronically underperforming schools, if a school has underperformed for 3 consecutive years, that school is underperforming. But please let us note, colleagues, the school must have been provided with consistent and targeted support to assist it to improve performance. It is also stated in Circular D3. Next slide, IK. I think, right, primary schools. Now, primary schools, now this is where there is a little bit of confusion. For primary schools, in the absence of standardized national assessments, individual school circuit district assessments should be used, results should be used. I will explain that a little later on. Now, the primary school must be deemed to be underperforming if using the language and learning and teaching the law and mathematics as proxy, less than 60% of their learners perform at level 4 and above in grade 6. Right, thank you, IK, you can move. Now, just to show you the number of underperforming schools and the changes or the improvement that had been made nationally in the number of underperforming schools from NSC 2022 to NSC 2024. Now, in NSC 2022, let us just go to the middle block, the underperforming secondary schools. We would notice that nationally, in 2022 NSC, there were 1,094 underperforming secondary schools. And this was when the benchmark was still below 65%. Then in 2023, after the benchmark has been increased to 70%, the number of underperforming schools still decreased, and it was 1,056 underperforming schools. Then in 2024, after the implementation of Circular D3, 2024 NSC, the total number of schools in the country that performed at below 70% decreased to 551 underperforming secondary schools. Now, if we look at that's quantitatively. Now, if we look at the quality at the bottom there, those are the schools that achieve above 70%, but below 30% bachelor passes in 2024 NSC. And we would notice there that there is a total of 794 schools where we have to increase the quality of those passes. Next slide, IK. Now, making sense of Circular D3 for primary schools. I'm just going to mention it again. Primary schools must be deemed to be underperforming if using the language of learning and teaching and mathematics as proxy, less than 60% of the learners perform at level 4 and above in grade 6. These schools would be deemed to be underperforming. If a school underperforms in only one of these two subjects, that school is also underperforming. So let me just do a simple calculation for you on how we calculate this. If you look at the first row says the lot. The grade is grade 6. The number of learners that wrote, 108 learners wrote. The number of learners that performed at below level 4, they were 58. The percentage of learners that performed below level 4 was 53.70. Now, if we look at the number of learners that were above level 4, we can see that that is only 46.30. So that is less than 60% of the learners having achieved. 46.30 is less than 60% of the learners that achieved above level 4 in the grade. So that is how we do the calculation. It's not 60%. I forgot to mention that I'm in the meeting with my director that will also be taking the questions after this meeting. But I think it will suffice now just to explain the one school. Next slide, please. Now, the utilization of top performing schools. Circular D3 also looks at how are we going to support these underperforming schools. One of the ways that we are suggesting is utilizing top performing schools in the circuit or in the district. What are the other forms of support that we can use? Pairing the schools with schools that require additional support. Pairing or twinning these top performing schools with schools that require additional support. We could encourage or maybe enforce a culture of sharing resources. And then maybe look at the idea of coaching and mentoring and establishing PLCs or professional communities of learning with these top performing schools. Next slide. Next slide, okay, thank you. So, you know, the phenomenon of underperformance cannot be eliminated by support only. We must also look at appropriate consequent management processes and where it needs to be applied. I do not need to explain this. The legislation we are looking at, it's in section 16A of the SASSA, it's in section 16 and schedule A1 of the Employment of Educators Act, and it is in schedule 8 of the Labor Relations Act. Thank you, IK, you can move. A brief summary of why the amendments were necessary. As explained earlier on, there was an improvement in the performance of the sector since 2017, Circular D2. Refer to slide 6. There is a significant improvement in the performance of districts in NSC. In 2023, only 2 districts performed below 70%. Now, this is nationally. In 2024, only 2 districts performed below 80%. The 2 districts obtained 78.6%. So they are not very far from 80%. Reports from the provincial education departments indicate that the foundation phase is doing well. The challenge is in the intercent. We wanted to correct the nomenclature. Literacy and numeracy, as stated in Circular D2, is associated with the foundation phase and not in grade 6. Using LOLT and mathematics as a proxy. Why? Because international and regional tests use the same subjects. No common assessments in grade 6. The process is guided there by the subject advisors in the district. Why grade 6? What about the other grades? Grade 6 is an exit grade. Then we also raised the benchmark to 70%. I'll explain a bit later on. And we included the bachelor passes percentage. Next slide. Just to explain quickly the 3 circulars. Circular D1 of 2014. There we used only literacy and not literacy and numeracy or mathematics. And there we only looked at 50% and we were using the annual national assessments, which was standardized assessment in the primary schools. And we used grade 3 and grade 6. So Circular D2 then replaced Circular D1 in 2017. Now, here we stated in the absence of standardized assessment, because you remember at that time, we didn't have the ANAs anymore. We are going to use school, circuit, and district assessment. We are going to use literacy and numeracy as proxy. And less than 60% of the learners perform at level 4 and above in grade 6. Then in 2023, the circular was amended. We still say in the absence of standardized assessments, school, circuits, and district assessments must be used. Here we are now using mathematics and LOLT as proxy. And it remains the same, less than 60% of the learners perform at level 4 and above in grade 6. Next slide. Here we have the secondary schools. In Circular D1 of 2014, the pass percentage there in the NSC was below 60%. We then increased it in 2017 to below 65%, and then we added the 30% bachelors. Then in 2023, we increased the benchmark or the pass percentage to, if the pass percentage in NSC falls below 70%, and we kept the less than 30% bachelor passes. That's for secondary schools. And chronically underperforming schools, if the school underperforms for 3 consecutive years, and the school must have been supported. Next slide. Any common misperceptions or misunderstandings that we heard about? It's the criteria for primary schools. Provinces want to use the subject average for maths and LOLT instead of the percentage of learners performing at level 4 and above. And then they calculate the percentage of bachelor passes incorrectly. This is how it should be calculated. The numerator would be the number of bachelor passes achieved by the school, and the denominator should be the number of learners who wrote times 100 to get the percentage. And then with a chronically underperforming school, if the school was identified as underperforming for 3 consecutive years, irrespective of whether the benchmark was 65 as it was in 2022 or 70% in 2023 and 2024, it is chronically underperforming. Thank you. Next slide. What education officials should be doing now? They should acquaint principals with the content of Circular D3 and ensure that the principals cascade the contents of the circular to their staff. They should make sure that stipulated time frames are adhered to, that all underperforming schools receive written notices from the head of department indicating that they are underperforming. Identify the challenges that led to the school underperforming, assist underperforming schools in developing the APIP, the Academic Performance Improvement Plan, PED intervention programs, short and long term, are implemented. Consequence management for school principals is effective. That schools use the correct formula when calculating the percentage of bachelor passes. They should monitor the implementation of recommendations made by subject advisors. They should address content gap amongst educators or teachers, and they should strengthen the support in primary schools. Next slide. Oh, the key milestones and timeframes. This is my last slide, and this is in the Act. Identify underperforming primary and secondary schools who provincial head of departments in the second week of January. Issue written notices to principals of schools identified as underperforming. This takes place in the last week of January, the HODs. Prepare and submit academic performance improvement plans. Within 21 calendar days, the school principal must prepare and submit academic performance improvement plans. Within 21 calendar days after receipt of the notice of underperformance. They should evaluate academic performance improvement plans, the HODs or the delegated officials, within 14 calendar days after receipt of the APIPs. Submit a report to the minister on the progress of action taken by the HOD in the management and support of underperforming schools. These are the MECs for education, on or before the 31st of March of each academic year. Report to the head of department and the governing body on progress made in implementing the plan by 30 June, and this should be done by the school principal. I thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Ms. Edith. Colleagues, as I said, you've heard it from the authors of the policy. Ms. Edith also told us that her director is also there with her. Colleagues, it's that time where we'll take questions. I'm looking at my time. Thank you so much, Ms. Edith, for sticking to time. It's that point where we'll take questions. So if you have questions, I think we're going to take questions till 10 o'clock. If you have questions, please, you can use the raise hand function. I know some people are still joining the session. You can use the raise hand function. You can also, I see the hands are already coming up. You can also capture your questions on the chat. I have my colleagues, Yankee and Nokulunga, also looking at that. Colleagues, we will be taking questions now. So as I said, you can raise your hands. You can actually also pop in your questions on the Q&A, and we'll be reading it out while Ms. Edith will be able to capture or respond to the questions. Yankee Knox, please, you would help me here. Is there any hand raised? Any questions in the chat?
Thanks, IK. There doesn't seem to be any hands up at the moment, but we are attending to the Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much. Colleagues, as I said, you have that opportunity to raise your hands, and you have that opportunity to also ask questions. We'll be able to take all of those before we go on the leg stretch or coffee break. And then remember also, we will be now going to part 2 of the session, where we will now say, okay, based on our understanding of the circular. Now, how do we use the data that have been, I know the questions are actually coming. How do we use the data that is captured on SSMs and also submitted to the Triple D dashboard to better support our schools? Because at the end of the day, colleagues, we don't want, we want to reduce, or we don't want underperforming schools. And with the calculations and everything that Ms. Edith has actually articulated, what do we do now and all that, I think it's getting more clearer. I see a hand up, Consolation, I see your hand. And please, you can just unmute yourself and please pose your question.
Thank you, IK. Good morning, colleagues. And Ms. Edith Smith, thank you so very much for the comprehensive presentation. I have one question here with regards to the grade 6 particularly. You find in Gauteng province, we have a class offering 2 laws, which is perhaps it's a dual medium school. So how do we go about calculating there with regards to having 2 languages in a class? Do we calculate them separately, or do we combine them to get the total number of learners in the class of both languages, or what? Perhaps we need guidance with regards to that one. And then the second one will be, for how long is the school valid to be categorized as a Section 58B? Do we take into consideration the financial year or the academic year? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. Ms. Edith, if you're ready to respond to that, please go ahead. Ms. Edith, you're on mute, so please unmute.
Thank you very much, IK. My director will be responding to that question.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues, for the 2 questions that have been posed. Regarding the first one, the calculation of the number of learners in grade 6 in cases where the school is offering more than, is teaching in more than 1 language of instruction. There will be an X number of learners who will be taught either in Sepedi or in Setswana. So what you do, because we want to know where the problem is, you need to calculate them separately so that you are able to deal with the problem that is at hand. That means if Setswana is performing well, then it's okay. Then if Sepedi is not performing, you need to indicate in the letter that the problem is with Sepedi. I'm just making examples with the 2 languages, not necessarily that they are the ones that are underperforming. Then in terms of how long is the school going to, we use the academic year. I do understand that in the system, we also utilize the financial year, but because we're dealing with results here, and this is the culmination of the work that has been done from January to November, then we result in December. So we use the academic year. I hope that one is clarified. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Director. I hope the questions are answered. I know there are 2 questions. I hope they are answered. All right. Thank you so much. Moving on, I know there are also questions on the chat. I see another hand. Okay. Please unmute yourself. The name here is Consolation. Please unmute yourself and please go on.
Thank you so very much again. Okay, it's just a follow-up. I really understood the explanation from the director that in a case whereby it's a dual medium, we separate and calculate separately. So what if in one language, these learners are performing well, as well as in mathematics, they're performing well? Then in one other language, the second language, they're not performing well. Do we identify the school as underperforming based on that one language? Whereas on the other one, they're performing. It's just a gray area again there. Thank you.
May I respond, IK?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we identified the school as underperforming. Remember, the purpose of identifying a school is to support. So if you leave that school out of the list of schools that are underperforming, it then means that you will not afford the districts the opportunity to support the school. So we want to support them such that everything goes well, all the subjects do not underperform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers you. There's another hand up here, Eval. Eval, if you can hear me, please unmute your mic and please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. I think from the presentation, I just wanted clarity with regard to the primary school categorization. We're looking at the language of learning and teaching as well as mathematics. And perhaps I missed the part where she explains or she indicated if they underperform in one of the two, would the school be categorized if it's only perhaps if it's English as a medium of instruction that is used in that school or as a language of learning and teaching, but then they're performing well in maths? Do we still then categorize the entire school as being underperforming? So basically, my question is, you have a school, they have underperformed in mathematics, but their file is correct, or either of the two, or should it be in both subjects? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eval. Ma'am, please go on.
Okay. Ms. Smith indicated that if the school is underperforming in English, in the language of learning and teaching, and or in mathematics, then the school is underperforming. And remember, I just indicated that the purpose here is to ensure that the school gets the support that it needs. So if we identify any form of underperformance, then we identify that school as underperforming so that it can get the necessary support from the province or from the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm just going through the charts, and I hope that you answered, Eval. I'm going through the chat. Ma'am Edith, I'm just going to read some questions from the chat to you so we don't leave those people behind. Barbara from the chat is saying, how have ELSIN schools been taken into consideration with the criteria for underperformance? ELSIN schools are not being monitored for the academic year. And another one from Baba is saying, my school is an ELSIN school and has been categorized as underperforming due to having less than 30% bachelor passes last year. That's the question. Please go ahead.
This is a tricky one because ELSIN school, they offer specialized tuition. Like, for example, even in cases where they are taught they've got assistive devices, they've got this. So for that reason, because their area is specialized, we have got a directorate for inclusive education. So they are the ones who are assisting in that area.
Okay. Thank you so much. And Barbara, I hope that you heard that. William is saying, good day, colleagues. If secular says Lord and maths to be used as proxy, is it not combined? Or if secular said Lord or maths, then one or the other subject can be used to be deemed as underperforming? That's the question. Ms. Edith, please go on.
Okay. Ms. Smith, you indicated that we're using these as proxy. And remember, mainly we want to make sure that in our country, we improve literacy and numeracy, hence the two subjects. And also, if you look at the regional tests and the international tests, like your PELS and your TIMS and your SACMEC, they also use the same subjects. This is not to say other subjects are not important, but then we're using these two just to measure the GET phase.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Mark is saying, what if LOT is one language and home language is another language? That's the question there. I don't know if you get that.
Just repeat that.
It says, what if LOT is one language and home language is another language?
Okay, Ike. We're saying
L-O-L-T.
the language of learning and teaching. I think let's stick to that.
Exactly. Okay, good. Good. Okay, thank you so much. I see two hands raised. Let me just go straight to the hand. Yes, Atalia, I see your hand first. Barbara, I see your hand second. So the first hand, based on what I'm seeing on the screen. Atalia, if you can hear me, please unmute your mic and please pose your question.
I'm just referring to the LSM. The LSM at a great disadvantage because the director spoke about the inclusive unit. The inclusive unit does not support in curriculum matters. In actual fact, LSM schools are really supported by LAMs. Really. And even now, we have two curriculums we have planned. So those curriculums we have to ask the department if we can send the text to debraille because the teacher is cited. So we are being said to be underperforming, and our bachelor courses are taking differentiated the exact same way as the mainstream school. So I feel somewhere, somehow, we will always be underperforming.
All right, thank you so much, Atalia. I don't know if Ma'am Edith or the director, you actually had that question.
The audio is very bad, IK. I don't know if you had the question or if the participant can put it on the chat.
Okay, please. I think that was what I just wanted to say, ma'am. Atalia, if you can hear me, please capture this question on the chat so we can be able to read that out. Apologies about that. I'm moving right along. Barbara, you are next on my screen. Please unmute your mic and please pose your question.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear. Please go on.
Are you able to hear me?
Loud and clear. Yes, please go on.
Okay, brilliant. Yes, so my question just comes back to LSEN schools. We're a combined school. Last year we had 80% NSC passes, but we had 20% bachelor pass. Many of our kids write the National Senior Certificate exam, but obviously they have learning challenges and many learning barriers, and hence we are categorized as an LSEN school. Due to our 20% bachelor pass rate, we were identified as an underperforming school. And we've gone through the same rigorous procedures as every other mainstream school that was categorized as underperforming. And my query throughout this whole period of time has been, should there not be alternative criteria for LSEN schools? And, has this ever been considered? Because we have been supported, but it's by the Independent Schools Directorate. And not by this inclusive directorate, which was mentioned earlier. So I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on what maybe what the type of support we should maybe be receiving. And I haven't had any contact from the Inclusive Directorate. So if I can just get some more information on that and just some more clarity on this, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, IK. In terms of the criteria set out in Circular D3, the school is underperforming because it did not meet the 30% benchmark for bachelors, even though they got 80%. But then considering that they are offering specialized education, I think we need to have a discussion with inclusive education so that they can make a suggestion, if need be, that we have certain criteria for ELSIN schools. Remember, they are just a small percentage of the schooling system, but then I know for a fact that they are part of the system and we cannot ignore them. But then we are going to have a discussion with inclusive education. Then in terms of the support that they say they are not getting, this is something that we also need to discuss with the PDs, because I know for sure we've got the section for inclusive education in all districts. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think next time, colleagues, I'm just looking at the time also. And please, I know you might be getting calls from your colleagues to say that they cannot join. We have already reached the cap of the attendees here. We are a lot here, but just know that it's been recorded and we are also going to share this on so many other platforms. So when you get those calls saying they can't join, it's just that we've reached the capacity, right? Moving right along, before I go to Eval, I'm just going to read out Atalia's question, ma'am. She says here, ELSIN schools does not get curriculum support from inclusive unit. LAMS rarely support ELSIN schools. That was what she was trying to speak about. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, okay. No. I know that there's a cry from ELSIN schools that they are not getting support. And we have got school improvement support coordinators that are in the districts who support underperforming schools. But I suggested to them that they should not support the schools because we are we are not a specialized section. We cannot deal with ELSIN schools, even though we'd really want to help them. Hence, I said this is a discussion that we're going to have with the Directorate for Inclusive Education so that we can be able to help them. Considering that they're needing for help, then it is a matter that I'll take up with the Director for Inclusive Education.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. And the last hand here, and before we go for our few minutes leg stretch, before we now come back and then try and go on with the session. Ewout, I know that your hand is up. Please unmute yourself and please pose your question.
Yes, I asked this question, and from the presentation, Ms. Smith indicated if the primary school underperforms in either the LOLD or the maths, they will be declared as underperforming. Now, from a practical point of view, we've dealt with this at the beginning of the year. And as a district, the number of primary schools that would have been declared as underperforming was a certain number, which was changed because the dispute from the unions and from the schools was to say, here is the policy that says using LOLD and mathematics, not just one of the two. So I heard the presentation very well, and Ma'am just repeated what was said. But I'm saying we are looking at the policy. It has not been changed. And now in my district, we only have one school that has been declared as a primary school that is declared as underperforming because it is the only primary school that underperformed in both mathematics and language of learning and teaching. So I really thought that I would be able to get a very clear clarity and explanation that I can take back to principals and schools because they refer back to this policy, which clearly says LOLT and mathematics. So I think it does not suffice to just say if they perform in one of the two, because it's not stated like that in the policy. And that is where we find challenges when we have to, you know, have a discussion with our principals when we analyze the results. Thank you
so much, Men, if you can respond to that.
Okay, thanks, IK. According to the, if you say according to the circular, it says in both maths and mathematics and language of learning and teaching. Remember, I indicated that the aim here is to improve numeracy and literacy. And even in all the tests that we write regionally and internationally, if we underperform in any of those, even though they don't mention underperforming schools, but then you will remember that we have got that 500 point in teams, if I'm correct. Then if we don't meet that, then we know that we have underperformed as a country. In the same way, if we don't perform at the required level, either in maths or in language of learning and teaching, then the school is deemed to be underperforming.